PvP in gacha games can be a daunting challenge for many. For others, it is where they go prove that their skills can match up to that of any wallet warrior. Today's videos focus us on just that. 5 skills you should know if you are a player of any budget, whether you're free to play or you're a space leviathan. You can use these concepts to rapidly improve your game, your skill, and your account to climb those ranks and get those frames. They're divided into chapters, so without further ado, let's fly. Level 1 is just to play the OP unit at the time. Everyone should know how to do this. A competitive gacha games in many ways plays the same as a card game. The new OP card or unit will not have any hard counters in the game to hold them back. As such, they will run rampant and uncountered for anywhere from a month to a year completely unchecked in the metagame. Biggest example of this is New Moon Luna. During her release, the only 2 ways to get value out of a character is to either go fast or have a passive skill. Luna was a character that has 124 base speed, which is among the fastest in the game, but can also soul burn her AoE seal onto the entire enemy team, denying them their passive skills. This makes her extremely competent versus both turn 1 and turn 2 teams for turn 1 and turn 2 players, which made her a must-have for every single player. And she was an absolute menace until character like Infinite Horizon Acades was buffed, and Bystander Huayang and Lone Wolf Pei were released just to counter her and slightly squeeze her out of the metagames. Nowadays, she's still very strong. At the time of writing this video, the 2 characters that fit this mold is Renak and Boss Arunka. They're both strong characters who are able to solo their entire teams if supported the right way. Renak is a fixed damage DPS, hiding behind her tanks and supports, able to cleanse her from her stuns, whereas Boss Arunka can be built as a defense scaling, counter-attack bruiser, super hard to kill, and will punch back and hit back. If knowing which units are OP is difficult for you, the best solution would be to subscribe to this channel. That way, whenever a new OP unit is released, you will be getting the most up-to-date info as well as builds, so you will know which characters just broke the game and exactly how to play them. Doing this correctly should be able to net you a strong enough account that you can comfortably AFK in champion arena rank. Level 2, Elemental Advantage and Elemental Baiting, the definitive method of beating defense teams. Just like many other RPGs, Epic 7 has a very familiar element system with its own twists. The winning element will have a 50% chance to deal more damage when it's not a crit, called a strike. This isn't really that important and it doesn't come into play much. The important parts is that it will deal an additional 10% damage and 15% additional crit chance. On the flip side, a weaker element attacking into the counter will have a 50% chance to miss, meaning there are weaknesses both ways for you to play around and to exploit. This one is important. Make sure you know this, because if attack misses, any debuffs related to that attack will miss as well, unless specifically stated. So without me explaining further, I'm sure you guys already know, you know, like play it like rock, paper, scissors, we know. And of course, that's always going to be a part of the game. But the important lesson here to learn is to use the weaker element to bait defense team units. Knowing how to do this will net you many free wins, even if you only have a handful of units, as long as you master the principle. Example number 1, as the enemy have a ton of light units on this defense, I can park martial artist Ken behind a good tank. Just by him being able to counter attack any crits, he will get the job done. Honestly, any tanky dark unit here would be able to just wrap it up as good as Ken does, but Ken has a passive that lets him counter attack, which speeds things up a lot. But the goal is to bait the AI defense teams into attacking an element that they're strong into, which buys time for your other units to do exactly what they need to do to clutch you out that win. Example number 2 here combines both principle, as they have a Mort and Afternoon Soak Flan as a combo. Blue Crow as a tank has the ability to absorb a lot of damage, then throw it back as a percent of his missing health. So the idea here is, as the highest HP unit on his team, he's going to be absorbing a lot of damage from the Mort and from the Mort S1, plus the Flan dual attacks. And when the timing is right, you can throw it all back into the red Flan. Even on a miss, you should be able to very cleanly one-shot her. And if you don't, the fact that Crow ultimate can't crit here means there is a chance you inflict the increased damage anyway and you close her out, easily removing one of the most broken units in the game. Finding weaknesses like this and threading the needle, abusing defense team AI with an elemental bait, is a skill that will make you a very good arena, but an especially good Guild War player. Even if you're not winning very fast, doing this will get you consistently winds, which will let you climb with a very shallow pool of units in each element. Also, if you don't want to learn this, just play Bossarunka, you know, the new OP unit as per the level 1 tip. Yeah, make sure you guys do that. Level 3, counterpicking. Identifying opponent win condition, countering said win condition. So the more important these levels of skills get, honestly, I just have a harder time finding out a way to make it good in a video. I'm gonna be honest. If I were to cover every single interaction, every single counterpick, even amongst just the meta units in the game, it will take from now till the end of E7WC, which is way too much time. And that's without covering, you know, when you start adding in the team element. So instead, I'm gonna refer you guys to the Discord stats catalog with my relevant PvP builds, synergies you can play into, what they counter, and what matchups to avoid. But for this video, I'm going to pick a couple of games that has a very meta relevant matchups, how I navigate those drafts, and what you guys can take away from those examples, not just counterpicking, but sometimes using your opponent's picks against them. And seeing as how right now the metagame is Renak versus Bossarunka as a handshake first pick, I'll be picking one match on each side to explain some common openers and endgame matchups. Let's start with a Renak game, who is the more accessible unit out of the two, being a limited green. The opponent here responds with Empyrean and Boss, his two strongest options since he pre-banned Fallen Cecilia. Boss can take first contact versus Renak, and Empyrean just protects her with penetration resistance, which is a huge part of Renak's damage. The easiest composition to play right now is Renak into Lidica and Dragon King as your top 3, with 2 cleave finishers on 4-5. Everybody is spamming that right now, so let's go with that. Here my opponent goes into Bellion plus Elena. A Bellion blocks Soul Burns, which is strong versus Lidica, while Elena is meant to choke out the AoE skills I have on my openers through Lidica and DK. Here I have 2 ways to wrap this draft. I can either completely commit into the cleave, or I can do what I did here, which is to pivot. So now this turns into an aggro draft. I want to divest my strength. ML Huayang is very strong versus light units for one, and my opponent happens to have 3 of them, but generally I think ML Huayang is strong anytime the opponent is playing a lot of debuffs or just units that lack burst damage. So they hit her, she counterattacks. As long as they don't one-shot her, she's going to be able to heal back through Sigur's Scythe or any of her bruiser healing artifacts. And this is a great use case for her. I think Death Dealer Ray is also another good pickup here, since my build is high effectiveness for him. Even through Elena Cleanse, I think generally speaking, Death Dealer Ray is kind of a power pick here. It's not a excellent pick. I don't feel 100% comfortable, but most of the time, I think a high F Death Dealer Ray should be able to beat an Elena. And once Ray puts up the effectiveness buff, it's a wash. So my opponent here goes for a very interesting last pick in the Amiki, and this puts me in a weird 50-50. The 50-50 here refers to the term that describes this exact scenario. If I ban the Amiki and he bans ML Huayang, the Ray, even despite having high effectiveness, might get completely walled by an extremely high ER team, an effect resist composition, which is a strategy very popular in the Japan server, and that's entirely possible. But if I were to ban the Elena here instead, which would be one of his crux characters in that team composition, he bans Death Dealer Ray, which then the Amiki would have enough burst damage to chew through my ML Huayang. So if I were to ban either one of the last two, there is a 50% chance I would lose the draft. Hence, I'm actually going to set my sights on banning the Empyrean Ilanav here instead, and there are 3 good reasons for it. One is if he doesn't ban my Renak, then I get to snipe his Bossarunka for free. At best, I'm up 1 unit, and at worst, I trade 1 for 1. Reason number 2, and just like Elena, Empyrean Ilanav is a cleanser. If I ban Elena, I could also consider Empyrean just for the exact same reason. And reason number 3, in effect res compositions, she is often the Bastion of Hope holder, which means she is the linchpin unit that holds their entire team building together. So likely she is very essential to his strategy, so banning out the higher likely out instead of stewing on a 50-50 becomes our best bet, which works out quite nicely since he bans our Renak. Elena cooldown gets blown up here by our AoE characters, and Amiki will get soloed by Death Dealer Ray, as she is very, very weak to hard crowd control. So since we cover Renak's side of the matchup, let's cover the Bossarunka side. Number one option when the other guy has Renak is to always take your boss Arunka. If you don't have boss, my best advice for you is to pre-ban both of them. That's your first step on the flowchart. If you don't have one of them, just pre-ban both unless you're first pick. If you want to know how the draft is played without either one of these units, you can watch my standard format cheat sheet here that was made before either one of these units were added to the game. Since that's what a pre-ban is for, you just pretend these units never existed. And by the way, if you guys want me to explore how to fight the meta units without having them, one good way to do that is to smash the like button and then leave a comment down below explaining what you have and how you want to see these drafts dismantled. I don't know, whatever upvoted comment, I guess I'll make a video on next. But if you do have boss Arunka and you picked her, your next step is to park a tank behind her. Fallen Cecilia or Empyrean Ilanav are your top choices since they each do a different thing that completely mitigates Renak's damage. Tank Abyssal Euphine also works quite well, swinging into the Lidica version of the cleave, and Blue Crow I also think is really good since if you don't have one of the top tier mitigating options, he can just absorb Renak's splash damage and then turn it against her squishy team. Rule of thumb is to have something with damage transfer effect like an Aureus parked behind your boss Arunka. My opponent here goes for the Lone Wolf Peyra, so he goes for a more tempo-based aggro composition using Spirit Eye Selene. A Euphine or Red Poly needs to be picked as a response to Peyra, since it cuts her 220% total team combat readiness to 110%. And even though A Euphine is not very good versus Spirit Eye, we have to take her here. In order to mitigate our bad matchup versus the Spirit Eye, then we have to pick up our 3F Bellion. If you don't have 3F or Bellion here, a fixed damage bruiser, like for example, even a Moas Pilus would work there. Can't get any more free to play than that. My opponent goes for a very intriguing package to finish the draft. He picks up both Mort and Seaside Bellona. Mort here is really good since 3 of my characters are really reliant on counterattack. Definitely a strong counter pick. SSB though is good versus 2 of these characters since they have area based attacks and they counter. So every time they pop one counter and then one more attack, Seaside Bellona will bat back with her extra attack, dealing a lot of AoE damage, and if she lands the defense break, it might just be Jover for my team. Both of these units are good, but I think his strategy has one flaw. They're not good together. Since the Mort holds my counterattacks, it means the amount of area-based counterattacks that can feed Seaside Bellona stacks will be massively decreased. So if I can find a pick on 5th that forces his ban, I can ban any character he has, and I think it's a GG. So in this spot, DDR should get the job done since most of his characters can't tank the sleep, and Mort is terrible versus Venom and Injury, which cleanly forces the ban. Match goes in. He has to kill boss Arunka since he was not able to afford to ban her, hits her a bunch of times, and between her and the rest of the cast, we can just use boss Arunka S3 to pick off the SSB and slowly walk our way towards victory without triggering a single counterattack. Remember guys, the chapter here is about identifying and countering a win condition. It is perfectly fine to use the enemy's win condition against them. Doesn't matter how you do it, a win is a win. Level 4, building a team composition. Standard, cleave, tank down. If you've been watching a lot of videos or streams for a while in E7, you're probably going to wonder what the fuck these words actually mean. I have a video for that specifically, 30 concepts and lingo for a new player to learn for PvP, which I'll link down below. Now, this is a chart of all playstyles organized by the rough average speed their key characters will play at. Let's dive into these playstyle identities and how to construct a team around them. On the opposite ends, you have the Harsetti-centric village playstyle. I don't have an example for you guys since I don't like to play Harsetti, but it's built around the Dark Mage ML5 Harsetti, whose passive forces every unit to be slower than she is, equalizing the speed advantage for the faster player. Then you got Cleave, which aims to clean up the game in a single clean turn rotation. If they haven't won by then, they will lose. In card games, Cleave is a lot like a combo deck that starts with their entire combo in hand. It uses a lot of speed gear to establish that first turn priority, then uses either damage or crowd control to stop the enemy from playing the game. It is a short, simple, and recommended for anybody who isn't afraid of racing or losing a couple of race basis there, since it is one of the easiest archetypes to build your team around. A standard team is called standard due to its resemblance with a standard RPG party. A tank, a support, a DPS, and in RTA, you'll have 2 more characters, so a second damage dealer and either a third damage dealer or just another support or debuffer. In the example shown below, this is a classic standard mirror match. Not only is it the most beginner-friendly playstyle, as each character has clear defined jobs, so the playstyle is very easy to learn, but it's also the strongest playstyle at the endgame level due to its ability to adapt to every single other matchup and have just good matchups overall versus literally all your other playstyles. Tank down is a playstyle currently rising quickly in stonks due to being the only playstyle that is not impacted by the power level of Renak. Since tank down focuses on drafting a lot of knights, which is packed particularly full with defensive utilities that keeps your units alive, it focuses a lot on making sure you survive the match first by investing those defensive passives and builds into your picks 1 through 3. Lock in 2 hard winning damage dealers on picks 4 and 5, and you got a recipe for an easy win. It is a good playstyle that avoids the stresses of racing, but it's also very resource intensive as it requires you to have a lot of specific Moonlight 5-star units, and on top of that, very good gear. And lastly, we got aggro, which is kind of an awkward spot right now because, as you can imagine, it's kind of like Cleave where you rely on speed and establish combos, but the crux of the playstyle is to have a lot of bruisers and supports that are strong power picks. So if you don't end the match in one combo rotation, they can generally flip the match for you and close it out in a clean 1v4. This used to be my main playstyle, but at the time of writing, it's more of a backup plan for when the Cleave falls apart and your opponent pivots too defensively and you break your own combo in order to find a clean win out for your match. So that's all of the main playstyle right now and the main team building philosophies behind them. But just kidding, there's actually one more secret composition, and Cleavers hate him for saying it. Of course you guys know what I'm talking about, it's anti-cleave. It seems like a lot of people actually don't know about this, and it's the reason why a lot of new players really hate cleave and they think it's cringe, despite cleave being weak for almost a year. But it's a playstyle that forces you to adapt your draft around your opponent, and everything is a counter pick. Just make sure you know that anti-cleave is a thing. When you're getting cleave, adapt as much as you can, because if you don't, you will lose. Since there isn't a set draft for anti-cleave, it's more of a, adapt on the fly, counter pick as much as you can, and just counter pick one unit to each of one of your opponent's unit type deal. You just gotta roll with the punches. Let me know in the comments down below if this is something you guys would love to see in a video and how to actually adapt your own strategy into anti-cleave, and I might just make that video the next video on how to counter pick cleave. And speaking of counter picks, that actually leads us up perfectly into, lastly, level 5, all of the above, while also covering for a ban. Okay, honestly, level 5, there really isn't any advice I could give you other than just play a lot of matches, man. Nothing can replace real experience, especially when you're at the end of the season or in the middle of a tournament in the clutch. Unless you're a visual learner, then I guess watching a lot of matches on streams help. But at the end of the day, you are the one that's going to be playing and climbing on the ladder or in a tournament. Nothing is going to be able to replace the experience you farmed up day after day. But if you at least learned which units are OP and which units are okay to spam, you could definitely hold your own in Guild War and Arena at least champion rank plus. If you've learned how to play around baiting elements, then you should be able to hit very high ranks in both Arena and Guild War. And after that, if you've learned how to build fully functioning team compositions with good philosophies behind them, doing all of that should net you at least, I think, Warlord rank in RTA, to be honest, even if you're on a relatively new account. But if you're not only just building your team, but countering your enemy's win condition while also maximizing your own win conditions in mind, then I think you are on track to being an Emperor Plus player in RTA. And of course, if you can do all of that, every single one, while also covering for a post-ban, accounting for a variety of pre-bans, and adapting your strategy to have the optimal win chance, then I think you are on the right track not only to Emperor, but to maybe even Legend, and even World Championships. I think anything's possible. Alright guys, and that is what I think is the 5 most fundamental skills in my opinion for Epic 7's PvP, whether you are going to be playing Arena, Guild War, or RTA. I know the Origin update brought in a lot of new players, so I wanted to make something that both veterans and new players can learn and appreciate. And if you did appreciate it, I would appreciate if you liked the video, subscribed, and commented on what topics you'd like to see next. And of course, if somebody else has a comment for that, make sure you guys upvote it to the top so I know what you guys actually care about. As always, if you want to delve deeper into the discussion here, you can find me streaming 5 to 6 days a week on Twitch and sometimes on YouTube. Discord server will always be open with the most up-to-date stats and short guides for PvP builds. But for now though, that's gonna be it from me in this video. I hope to hear from you guys, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care. See ya.